Hey guys, this is Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com. Today I want to talk to you about the simplest and most effective way to take a terrible looking lawn, make it look a lot better in about a month's time. I completely understand that the vast majority of people want to have a pretty good lawn, but they don't want to spend a lot of money or time doing it. Nor do really the vast majority of people really want to know particularly much about lawns. Now, here on this channel and over on my website, I educate people on all levels. Some of the techniques that I'm going to talk to you about today are things that I'm not really doing in my lawn because I'm doing more advanced things. But for the majority of people, this is going to work just fine. Now, if you do want to learn more, go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, I've got other videos on this channel that will teach you a lot. But for the sake of this video, this is just the basics. All right, let's break this video into two distinct parts. First, the summary. We're going to do three things, assuming that you have a granular spreader. So if you don't have a granular spreader, just go down to your local big box store and pick one up. You really don't need anything fancy. I run a fairly substantial website and YouTube channel, and I use one of the cheapest spreaders on the market. You don't really need a granular spreader that's fancy. So go get one. If you already have one, dust it off. Now, three things. We're going to put down a product that we call in the lawn care community a pre-emergent. This product prevents weeds from germinating. These are the weeds that you're going to end up having later in the spring and the summer. We don't want to kill them then, we want to prevent them now. Two, we're going to apply a granular organic fertilizer. All of this is happening in the month of April. Basically, if you were to do all of this stuff like April 1st, that's going to work for the vast majority of people. In the month of April, you're going to put down this granular organic fertilizer. It's not going to go to work right away because in most cases, this kind of fertilizer is a slow acting. It has to go into the soil and microbial life is going to activate it, so to speak. Three, we're going to start mowing the lawn 2 times every single week. So whether that's a Saturday and a Tuesday or a Sunday and a Thursday or a Monday and a Friday, whatever it is for you, 2 times a week, no matter what, through the month of April. That's pretty much it. The point here is we want to stimulate growth of grass. Now in the spring, grass is going to start growing no matter what. So even if you don't do anything, it's going to start growing. That's what nature calls for in the spring. But what we want to do is we want to push the growth so that it is more vigorous, because we want whatever grass that you have in your lawn, even if it's just spotty or patchy and thin, we want to boost the thickness of that grass. And a lot of grass types, we're talking a lot of grass types, will spread horizontally on the ground. So if we can push growth beyond what nature is calling for, it's going to start creeping into those bare spots. The weed pre-emergent, or the weed preventer, is what's going to stop the weeds from germinating in those bare spots. So you're not going to have competition with whatever grass that you happen to have. Now, don't seed. You don't need to seed. That complicates things. Even advanced lawn care people have a hard time seeding in the month of April. Like, you just do. In the springtime is not the best time to seed. So if you're new to this, don't try. Boost whatever grass that you already have. Prevent weeds so that you don't have to kill them later. And that's another problem that people get themselves into down the road, is they just say, let's wait and see what weeds come up and then we'll kill them later. It's harder to do that. It literally is. You're putting harsher chemicals down, and it's harder to spot treat. You need to have sprayers usually. Otherwise, you're blanketing your entire lawn with chemicals that aren't necessary. It's better to prevent them now in the month of April. Now, mowing, this seems like, I don't know, it just seems trivial. You have to mow twice. The reason for that is whatever weeds have already germinated, let's call them the winter weeds, or maybe the early season weeds that germinated before you got a pre-emergent down, those weeds are going to start growing. And if you put a weed pre-emergent down, that's not going to stop them because they have already emerged. So what we're going to want to do is cut them. Don't overcomplicate things and go out and try to kill these things. Just mow them down. We're talking simplicity here. That's what the goal is. If you grab your mower and mow the grass, weeds, generally speaking, don't like to be cut. So if we're cutting them frequently, a couple times a week, we are not going to kill them, but we're certainly going to suppress them, and they're not going to explode. Like, they're just going to be there, but they're not going to explode. Grass, on the other hand, operates completely different from weeds. When we cut the grass, it actually stimulates more growth, healthier growth. The grass blades thicken up, they spread laterally, they put on more healthy growth, especially when we're putting down our organic fertilizers. So if we're cutting the grass twice a week, then that means that we're stimulating the health of the grass and the growth of the grass, but we're suppressing the weeds that are already there. We've put down a pre-emergent to prevent additional weeds from forming, and the feeding of the grass is going to give the grass enough nutrition to not just grow through the spring, but to really thrive. We want big fat grass blades. We want our grass to spread laterally. Lots of grass types will spread laterally. There's a few that don't. Perennial rye, for instance, or tall fescue. These things don't usually spread, but most people do have grass types that will spread. So if your grass is thin, don't worry about seeding. We can talk about that in the fall. Just do these 3 simple things and you will probably have an enormous change in your lawn in about a 1 month's time. All right, now like I said, this is beginner stuff. I am not exactly a beginner. I'm going to be doing some different things on my lawn this year. If you want to go down the rabbit hole and learn a little bit more, I already have a couple videos about spring lawn care on this channel. 2 different kinds of videos. Both of them are going to be linked up here in your upper right hand corner. They're going to come up sequentially here. The first one is roughly a 20-minute video. It's a video where I give a lot of spring lawn care tips. So if you're new to lawn care and you actually want to step up your game, it's going to give you a lot of information. It's about 20 minutes long. If you want to learn a little bit more of the advanced stuff, then the next video that's going to pop up here is roughly a 40-minute video. It's my full-length spring lawn care guide. I go over a lot of advanced topics in there as well. Make sure to take a look at those if you like. Now also, depending on when you're watching this, you might not be watching this in the spring. If you're watching this at some other season, down in the description below, I'm going to have some links to other lawn care guides for different seasons. So summer, fall, winter, all of those will be linked below. Because the advanced things that you do in the lawn in the month of September are completely different from the advanced things that you do in the lawn in the month of, let's say, April. Now, as is usual, I have a text version of this video also linked down below in the description. If you want to know what kinds of products I tend to recommend for beginners and more intermediate and advanced people, all of that's going to be linked down there on that text version of this video. It's too much to talk about in this setting. To keep things super duper short and easy, one of the easiest things that you can do when it comes to picking up a pre-emergent and an organic fertilizer is just run down to your local big box store. One of the most common beginner fertilizers out there is a product called Milorganite. It's an organic nitrogen fertilizer with phosphorus in it. There's no potassium, but it's going to go down and you won't be burning, you won't be striping, even if you've never done it before. It's a very safe product to use, especially for beginners. Scott's makes Weed X, that is a weed pre-emergent. Make sure that you pick up a bag that doesn't have fertilizer in it of any kind. Just straight pre-emergent, that's what you want here. These products are widely available all across the country. They are really not exactly the products that I'm going to be using heavily on my lawn. I do own some of them in the garage, but I'm going to be putting some other products down. If you want to know the more advanced products that I'll be using, then that's also going to be down there on the text version of this video as well. Make sure to get started. That's literally the hardest part for most people, is actually taking action. This stuff is easy. You can apply pre-emergent and fertilizer all in the same day, probably in about 30 minutes, depending on the size of your yard. And then you never have to do it again, unless you want to do it again in June to set yourself up for a pretty good looking summer. Mowing isn't going to be that big of a deal because if you're mowing it 2 times a week, it never gets overgrown. So it's pretty easy to mow grass that's not overgrown. Anyway, I hope that helps. Please watch the next video coming up. It's one of those lawn care guides if you want to go down the rabbit hole.